Tiana or Tiana, which is with a J, and this is the Right Opinion podcast, where I like to discuss different topics and how they relate to both writing and writers. Prepare yourselves for a little bit of a rant in today's episode, because everything is ugly and it sucks. I'm going to look at a few different topics, including writing, but I think it's really important, the sort of things that we take in our environment and how that's going to affect us both mentally and physically. And with some of the examples that I'm going to give, maybe you'll understand why I am so annoyed with how ugly everything is, and that sometimes I wished in a 1920 instead of the 2020s. So let's start with music. I had to kind of plan out this episode a little bit earlier, so some of the things have changed. But to me, one of the ugliest things today, unfortunately, is music. And I think if anybody listens to any of the top 10 songs that are the most popular on a given day, maybe you will agree with me. So a lot of you know Kanye West, Ye, whatever the guy's name is at this point. He came out with a new album about 2 months ago, so beginning of February, mid-February. And I actually didn't listen to any of the songs because I can't. I would like to preserve some of my brain cells. I read the lyrics, and I think that was more than enough. But when that album came out, I don't even have the album name, honestly. It's just whatever the newest one is. Out of the top 10 songs on Apple Music, on Apple Music, 7 or 8 of them were from that brand new album that he had just dropped. Now, or let's see, I think I wrote it down. It's Carnival is the name. And so I read the lyrics, and the very first lyric goes like this. By the way, there's going to be some swearing in this video simply because I would like to illustrate what sort of music is happening, what sort of things people are rapping and singing about, and that we as listeners are pushing to the top of the charts. So it starts off as go, 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 head so good, she on a roll, she ride the dick like a carnival. I mean, what a great way to start. I mean, let's start off the song by insinuating that a girl who's really, really good at certain sexual activities is equivalent to being at the top of her class. I mean, that's just great, like a class act. I guess there's some. I had to write all this down because I couldn't possibly remember it. But and there's another verse where the other guy in the song is Ty Dolla $ign. He's rapping about how he made $1 million selling drugs, so made $1 million off the stove. And Kanye West himself has a line where he said, "They served us porn since the day we were born," because he's admitted having a porn addiction, which today, as I'm filming this, it's the 25th of April, I saw a post on Instagram saying that Ye has also now decided to open his own porn recording studio. So that's really great. You admit you have a porn addiction, and then you rap about how, it's like a bad thing, we're constantly being served this, and then you're gonna open your own adult entertainment studio. I mean, that all makes perfect sense. So yeah, he has no problem perpetuating this problem through his music. If you see any of his cover art, the cover art for this album was a naked girl. And apparently he was a born again Christian. I kind of doubt the validity of that, but how does somebody who's a born again Christian have the audacity to, in his newest song, say, "I'm the new Jesus, bitch. I turn water into Cristal being a type of fancy champagne." So again, we're all going to sit here, we're going to listen to this, we're going to bump it up to the top of the charts, and none of us are supposed to say anything about his blasphemous lyrics. Great. So yeah, I call this lyrical garbage personally, speaking. And of course the entire again, I didn't listen to the whole thing, but the entire album basically perpetuates dominance and sexual aggression over women. And you know, I'm just confused. Where are the feminists who are all, we're not supposed to do this, this is a bad thing, me too, whatever. So again, we have rappers actively perpetuating this sort of behavior, and we're not only accepting it, we're again putting them on a pedestal, in their respective industry to be at the top of it. And then I also went on Reddit because I wanted to see what people thought about the album, and there's another popular lyric which came up. Again, I didn't listen to any of this, so this is just what people have written down. But it says, "Beautiful big titty women don't fall out of the sky, And I mean, I'm just very curious, as a writer myself, who really puts in a lot of thought and effort into some of the things that I write. I wonder just how hard Kanye West had to think to come up with something so deeply profound. But so on the Reddit, people are praising him. Some people call him a genius, despite the fact that the man is clearly going a little bit insane. But people genuinely think that what he's doing is fantastic. And they were saying how some of his earlier work was great, and he's really worked really hard over the last 2 decades, and if that's what qualifies as a genius today, please, for the love of God, send me to another universe, because I don't think the word genius means very much today anymore if this is what we're using it for. But one thing I have heard a lot in certain circles is that Kanye West is commended for his work ethic because he works really hard. He's managed to be very business savvy and entrepreneurial, so not just music, but he's made shoes, he's branched out into fashion, he's managed to lose a lot of money, he's managed to make it back, he's survived being canceled. So I've heard that people say, he has a long-term vision. He's been in the game for 2 decades already. The man is clearly a visionary, and that's one of the commendable aspect about him. However, I don't really see that though, because to me, having a long-term vision in a way is like having a legacy that will live on after you die. So today we still listen to Mozart and Bach, we listen to Elvis, we listen to the Beatles. So like a lot of these people who are not with us today, who 50, 60, 100, 300 years later, we are still listening to them. They're considered in some ways the best of their field. And realistically speaking, we'll probably be listening to them for another at least few hundred years. Can we say the same thing about Kanye West, though, and these lyrics that he's coming up with? Like, once Kanye dies, is anyone going to keep listening to his music? Or if Kanye gets canceled once and for all, realistically speaking, are we going to keep listening to him and praising him? I seriously don't think so. Because I think in the grand scheme of things, this is just his long-term vision is to be relevant for as long as he's alive and make as much money as possible, and after that, like, who cares? He's not going to be around. I don't consider that very much a long-term strategy. Another thing that I think has also gotten really ugly is architecture. Now, for those of you that live in North America, and I say this because I grew up in Canada, so we don't have a lot of beautiful architecture in North America. We don't have historical buildings from, the Renaissance, or even long before the Renaissance, because most of the North American cities that we know of today, the way that they survive and exist today, are from only 250 or so years ago. So they're very modern, contemporary, you think big glass skyscrapers. And I find this really disappointing because everything looks the same, it's boring, it's ugly, and there's absolutely no indication in this architecture to show the culture or the viewpoints or values of these people. So when you look at something like the Taj Mahal or Machu Picchu or the Sagrada Familia or the Temple of Saint Sava here in Belgrade or the Great Pyramids or any, the Duomo in Italy, like all of these structures, when they were built with a purpose and they meant something, and they were also supposed to last. They have a story behind them, some of them tragic, some of them beautiful, but some of them, and they preserve a place in the history of where they were built and the time that they were built in. Architecture doesn't do that today. Architecture today is like, let's bowl down all these beautiful structures that we have, because they're doing that all over the world, unfortunately, to build these massive gray skyscrapers and that are made out of glass, cardboard, and glue, so that people can make money, and in 30 years they'll all be knocked down to make new ones all over again. And what I have noticed is that as I'm traveling, because I travel all over the place, is that you're seeing the same architecture everywhere. So it doesn't matter if you're in Serbia or Canada or the Netherlands or Egypt, the same style of apartment buildings, these weird, jagged, awkward, non-symmetrical buildings that are part of contemporary architecture are everywhere now. So it's just like, if you go to a place, you almost don't even know that you're in another place, because you just see the same stuff everywhere. That was one of the joys of traveling, was that when you went somewhere, it was totally different from where you came from. It was a completely different lifestyle, and now everywhere is kind of the same, honestly. And I'm just confused too, is like these architects that are making these buildings, or people that are commissioning these buildings. Where is the long-term vision? These buildings, again, they're probably just going to be torn down in 30 to 50 years to make new buildings that are equally, if not more ugly. And I'm wondering, like, do people not have any desire for beauty anymore? They don't have a desire to showcase craftsmanship and excellence like it was before. Like when the Duomo was being built, when the Medici started building it, they knew that they wouldn't actually see the end of the project, that realistically it would be done long after they were gone. But they started a legacy, they started a vision, and they did something for the people and for the generations to come after. Architecture today doesn't do that. It's just randomly put about for the sake of saying that we have a modernized city. Governments can say that they have a nice modernized city, and companies got rich off of building these ugly buildings, and that's it. And I find that extremely disappointing. And this is in every aspect. Fashion is the same way. I mean, I'm not a huge fashion obsessed person, but I like style. I'm interested in style and dressing well and presenting yourself well, because I think it's a form of self-respect, but it's also a form of respect for the people around you and your environment. And whoever decided that streetwear is socially acceptable and that it is cool to not put in an effort is not cool, because I think whoever decided that it is totally okay to just go out in a ratty t-shirt and shorts and sneakers and not put in any effort into yourself, I think they did society a massive they didn't do society a favor whatsoever. It's just look at clothes now. Even the designers, they're creating stuff that it looks like you're wearing a garbage bag. They're creating shoes that look like there's a freaking alien wrapped around your foot. I mean, I really don't know who finds that appealing, but ripped up clothes. When my mom was growing up, if you came anywhere with ripped clothes, not only did it mean that you were clearly not well off socioeconomically, but it's just like you clearly did not have any respect for yourself, for your family. And so even people that didn't come from rich families, or families who could afford to just buy new clothes when their old ones became worn down, they still put in the effort to mend them and repair them, because this was seen as a standard and it was how you were supposed to behave. And today you can just basically go out like you just rolled out of bed. Like, you won't see this in Europe, I will admit, but you will see this in North America. You can go to a grocery store like a Walmart in your pajamas. Since when did it become okay to not even put on clothes to go out in public? Like, I'm completely baffled by that. The bare minimum is not even being met half the time. And I'm gonna pick on the boys just a little bit, because realistically speaking, boys, you have to put in way less effort in your hair. You don't have to wear a bunch of makeup. Half of you don't have to shave, or you can't even grow a beard to shave in the first place. And the one place where you can really truly put in that little bit of effort to make yourself really be presentable, respectable, even stand out, you put on nice pants, a nice shirt, maybe a nice blazer, nice shoes. It's really not that difficult. And people are going out in sweatpants and t-shirts, and I really don't understand it. And the last thing is, of course, that writing, I think, has also gotten ugly, in the sense that, I mean, this one's kind of tough for me, because writing, to me, it's like the closest thing we can get to reading a person's mind, because it's like, I think of it as a truly deep expression of what's in somebody's soul. And there's a quote by Descartes where he said, "The reading of all good books is like a conversation with the finest minds of past centuries." And because books were written to express something, they were written to express philosophies, and they were written in response to things that were going on in that time period. And it really is like that. It's like you're having a conversation with someone, and they're sharing their viewpoint with you, even if it isn't a fictional story. But with some of the stories today, we constantly see the same tropes being recycled over and over again. People are being limited by word genres, and it's just, the smut thing has gotten a little out of control. And I say that as somebody who's read a lot, like a decent amount of smut, especially because I'm writing in the mafia romance genre. But I go back to the same question of, like, what is the long-term vision that people have for their writing, or for whatever they're creating? Do you want to be forever known as the person who wrote really, really good sex? Or do you want to have a greater impact with your writing? I don't know. Maybe perhaps it's my own feelings about my own writing and the sort of, let's say, legacy and long-term vision that I have. Maybe it's grander or too grand, or maybe I'm just deluding myself into thinking that whatever I'm doing is better than it actually is. But to me, I personally don't want to be known as the person who just wrote these, I don't know, fluffy, sex-filled books that really had no point to them. And the reason this is a problem is because I have seen people literally online who have commented that they will not read books if there's no smut in them. And so it's like, it's kind of going back to the whole pornography thing too, that we're constantly being spoon-fed it all the time in fashion, when people are dressing, half naked out on the streets, in music, and now even in literature. So we went from creating philosophies, from inspiring people to change, we went from just creating stories of beauty and hope and adventure and love, to these people really like each other and then they just have sex throughout the entire book. Like, I don't understand it. I don't understand what's the point of writing something if you aren't going to take the reader beyond their daily life in a way. And then same thing, like, are these books today going to be considered literary masterpieces? Are we going to be reading them in 50, 100 years, 150, 200 years from now? I don't know. And so I feel like our culture is really just obsessing and promoting the ugly, and you see that in every aspect around us. So music, architecture, fashion, literature, just the way people act in general. And I think to me it's just a poor expression of the values like that people have. If all we are valuing is just sex and ugliness, well then it's also no wonder why people today have they feel isolated, they feel depressed and anxious, because we've gone to promoting things that are literally soul sucking. Our architecture is like a new cardboard version of brutalist architecture, which I personally think is the most soul-sucking architecture ever created. Our music is literally just perpetuating the same message over and over again, and even today's books, it's just kind of the same stories over and over again. But we do have a lot of options, thankfully, so you can choose to read other books and listen to other music. But my big problem is that it's just that the ugliness is what's being perpetuated constantly. That's what's at the top. So you have beautiful music being created today. You have people who are pushing against that. But unfortunately, it's highly unlikely that those people are going to be number one on Apple's, the top music chart, or Spotify or something, or the best-selling novels. They're not all going to be these ones that really question and promote ideologies and values and to promote a better society. And as for architecture, somebody help me. Somebody build a beautiful building today, please. Please, I just want to see something really pretty. So I'm just tired of all the ugliness. I just want to have a pretty life. I like pretty things, and I feel better personally when things are beautiful around me, because life is beautiful. And even when it isn't, but if we can see the beauty around us in our environment, we then also start to feel better internally. And so that's why I think it's really important. That's why, during the Renaissance and other periods in time, they valued beautiful music, they valued beautiful architecture and beautiful clothing, because these things ultimately, even to those of us that couldn't afford the best of the best, everybody still in a way got to enjoy that. Whereas today, we're pushing all the ugliness, and I don't know why. So that's my little rant for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please share your thoughts with me. I'm really curious. I know sometimes potentially compared to some people, maybe I'm a bit more extreme in some of my views, but because, people, they're totally happy wearing comfortable clothing, and they love, rap, and they think that buildings from, 100 or plus years ago are just, they're too much. So I'm really curious as to what you guys think about this. Do you feel the same way? Do you feel differently? And so let me know in the comments, and I will see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching. Bye.